Okay, so I think we're live and going. Miho, how you doing?
Yes, very well. Yes, live. Yeah,
Good.
live's a loose description on a Sunday morning, but I'm coming
Yeah,
around.
bit like buses. Had to wait for a couple of months to do the last one, and then suddenly two come along in a couple of hours. But we'll maybe I'll put the release back a little bit so it can at least pretend that we've been a while since the last one. But
Staging them. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I
Becoming a
don't.
habit. Good stuff.
Yeah, I guess we don't really need to do much introduction. The usual stuff about the purpose. Just have a look at some video and think about lessons from it and training stuff. Last time we looked at one you provided, which was the kind of subway one, New York or wherever it was. The older guy who was getting in an argument with the younger guy.
Yeah,
And we kind of speculated a little bit on why that might have been. Afterwards, actually, someone messaged me to say they'd seen another version of that video online, and the commentary there kind of pretty much bore out what we said, that there were words pretty immediately after the two individuals plus the third party, the son of the older guy, got on the subway, that there were some words between the younger guy and the older guy, because the older guy had been, in the younger guy's view, blocking the aisle and wasn't easy to get around or something, and so he had said something to him, and so like we said,
yeah, yeah.
losing your life
One-click
over,
comment and then
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, losing your life over a comment about blocking the aisle rather than just going, sorry mate, and walking around and apologizing or whatever. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
good.
It's that standard mantra that you sort of try to carry with you. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
If you assess every situation you approach and go, "Am I being a dick?" You'll almost always steer yourself right.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that kind of knee-jerk reaction of biting back. Someone says something, you feel affronted, or you say something smart back, and something else smart is said, and it just kind of escalates like DEFCON 3 to the nuclear option. And there's no way to kind of extract yourself. The deeper you get in, the more difficult it is to extract yourself from that kind of triviality, becoming significant. There's no easy off ramp once you're speeding along the route.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I've got one for you. I've got a little video for you. So you're watching this one blind rather than
Yeah.
the other way around, which is what we did last time. I'll play it through once. There is some commentary on it, but hopefully I'll kind of muted that, and watch it without commentary, and because it's kind of a news report. It's UK based, and I'm not quite sure how long ago. I think it's a while ago, about a decade ago or something. But and then maybe if you want to, we'll watch it through a second time. If you want to hear the commentary, then you can. But I don't think
That's
it's
fine. That's
particularly
fine.
essential to it. So let me see how I can share my screen. Make sure I get the right one. Window. Okay. So you should be able to see that. I'm gonna put it on full screen and press play. You can see that, okay?
Yeah, yeah, I got it. It's a YouTube thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not playing yet though, bud.
Is it not?
No.
It's playing quite a lot on mine. Let me wind it back to the beginning. No, not yet.
Nah, not at all.
Oh, strange. You can actually see the picture though.
See the picture, but it's a still. It's like a still of the whole page, and all the other guff down the right hand side. The other
Okay.
videos.
Okay, let me try. What about now?
Right, it's going.
Okay. I just have to leave it like that, I think.
That's fine. It's got it. All right.
So, do you want to watch it through again?
No, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I think I got most of it. How long was it? Yeah.
It's only a few seconds. I mean, let's have one
Yeah,
one more
stick play.
time.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
more
let's go
time
in again
through.
straight away. Yeah, no. Let's see this
Slightly
early
slightly
part of it.
worried about the having put that into the search engine, what weird and wonderful videos it's bringing up as suggestions, but
Yeah, yeah.
it seems to bring up all the nutcase stuff, but
No, it's always the way.
yeah.
Right.
Stop sharing now.
Good. Worth a watch.
Hopefully that's disappeared.
Yep, you're back.
Good, good.
Full HD.
So yeah. So what did you make of it?
Yeah,
What
hadn't
thoughts?
seen it before. Didn't pick it up. Don't recall it from the news or anything.
I think it's
Yeah,
quite
I
old.
mean, it was a while ago. Yeah. Obviously, first my first thoughts are sort of all the errors that he's making. But that's aside. There was a build up. I don't know what had triggered it, but there was clearly a build up to them targeting that chap, and it looked like from something. I don't know. There was some route to them having to sort of surround him and sort of corral him and then sort of talking with him or whatever. They looked to be dragging something out of his hand, which I think was his phone. I couldn't quite work what that bit out was at the first at the start. I don't know if he was trying to video to try and keep himself safe, sort of thing. That idea. Next thing, I've seen my gran fight harder than gang members, and I think it makes me realize sort of descriptions of things are sometimes the problem is much bigger in your head than in reality. If someone goes, oh, it's 5 gang members laid into a bloke, you think, shit, that's serious. And I think you think of rappers who look like Cypress Hill or something as gang members, like gang bangers. But it's not. It's just a bunch of.
I have no idea who that is. I'm too old to get those references, I'm afraid. But
1990s hip hop. You can dig
okay.
into the vinyl later, but your typical sort of gang banger look. And they don't look at these guys didn't look like anything. They couldn't punch. They couldn't kick particularly. And it was just like an onslaught, like a playground melee. But obviously they were clearly not worried about doing him some damage, and they were trying to put some kicks in. The only effectual stuff potentially was a couple of kicks that landed on his head towards the end. The rest of it was just sort of wailing on him with his hands up. So it's sort of really ineffectual, but he wasn't doing anything about getting away from it or stopping it. And it was fortune that they were fairly ineffectual. Had they been able to either throw hands or pulled something out and started coshing him with it or stuck something in him, it'd have been a different story, and they'd have still not been able to do a lot. And they could reasonably be carrying something. But yeah, nobody steps in, nobody's interested at all. It didn't look like it was the middle of the night. It did look like it was in the high street. I didn't hear the sounds, but certainly no one else is intervening. No one will come to your aid. And if you don't do something about it, they carry on. I think they carried on until they got bored. I don't think it was anything else. They just give them a pounding. That was enough for their egos, and they left. And it's fortune that they were, sort of a bit bland and didn't know what they were doing. Secondary, then you start to look at it actually tactically, how he got himself in the position of basically, the meat in a sandwich. You know, he was surrounded and, you know, hands on him and steering him and cajoling him. He was knackered the moment that they got within 6 foot of him. You know, he was in trouble. A number of people surrounding you and sort of keeping you off to one side. They take him sort of out from the middle of the street, put in a position where you can't exit. The fight's on. I don't care what they're arguing with you about. The fight was on as they were tabbing towards him from before they crossed that first bit of the road. You know, they were coming for him. And if you're not aware of that and moving away from it, the moment they're around you, you're not doing something, it's too late. And it's a shooting fish in a barrel job. It's just gonna happen when it's gonna happen. And yeah, he's you know, very sort of low awareness, low self-awareness. That's, you know, distance, that sort of you know, personal space, not really triggering necessarily to realize there was trouble, but could easily be driven from an adrenaline response basis, not thinking higher brain functions, because there's a group of blokes around him gobbing off. He's a foreign student. There's obviously potentially language issues. You know, if he's a foreign student, he's probably, yeah, we could maybe estimate that he's a reasonable individual. He's probably not used to necessarily getting into scrapes like that, certainly not in a foreign country. So yeah, all pretty overwhelming for the lad, but not a lot done by him to make him, you know, to improve his chances.
I suppose, you know, it's a good point worth pointing out that, you know, he was still walking at the end of it, right? After whatever reason they stopped for him, you know, may just been, like you say, they'd kind of worn themselves out to the point which, okay, well, I've done what I sort of did in order to burn off the adrenaline I had, or maybe they got conscious of someone watching, or they woke up to their actions, who knows. But, you know, he was still on his feet and he walked off, and by all accounts, from what I can find out, you know, relatively unscathed, you know, physically at least, you know, emotionally probably, you know, scarred for life, but but you know, physically he wasn't, you know, kind of you know, injured or anything like that. So yeah, the stuff was ineffectual to the extent that it left him on his feet. Yeah, well, I could understand he was a young American student who was over on exchange or whatever, only been in the country a few days, and was then assaulted whilst out with a friend. I didn't see the friend in it, but out with a friend in I think it was London, just out having a wander around, early evening, as far as I could tell. Had a bottle in his hand. I didn't see that either. Apparently, according to some of the description on YouTube, and I think it was in one of the daily papers that published it online as well, he had the bottle taken off him and hit with the bottle. He was hit with his own bottle. But it did look like he had his phone out as well. It did look like, you know, he was like calling for help, right? So yeah, so they, you know, it was going to turn up, even if you managed to get through to them. Or he may have been bargaining with his phone. I don't know if it was, you know, a robbery. It seemed to be, from the description, it seemed to be something about a turf thing, right? You know, what are you doing here? You got a strange accent. Some sort of what Rory Miller would call group monkey dance. You know, there's a pack of them that are sniffing around, and something seems out of place. What are you doing here? Who are you? And then the dialogue doesn't go the way that you know would kind of edge that away from it. It just escalates it, which it probably was going to anyway. And so they give him that kind of educational beating, to, you know, but without any intent to kind of, you know, seriously maim him or anything. But you know, when there's a pack of people like that, the chances of being hurt seriously are quite high, right? You know, chance of dying from that kind of assault, even though the shots aren't that effective cumulatively, you know, or one unlucky shot, you know,
exactly. You know, well, a sort of
running the odds,
or you know, not necessarily well-timed kick, as he was down on sort of all fours. You know, he gets a kick across the sort of jawline or straight to the bridge of his nose from someone's shin. Even if they don't know what they're doing, all they've had to do is kick a football in the, you know, around the park for 10 years of their life, and you can kick something bloody hard, and it'll do for him.
I mean, it was noticeable, the kicks at the end were one in particular to his head. Yeah, I thought, oh crikey, here it comes, right? You know, here's the kind of the final punt of the noggin, and it was actually kind of a push with the foot. It was that kind of sort of stompish
Yeah,
kind of kick, which, given that
it
his
was.
head's
Yeah,
got a long way to travel before it would impact anything, he's going to push his head away unless there's a huge amount of power behind a kick like that. There didn't seem to be. It was kind of more of a push, a strong, heavy push with the foot, which is going to hurt a lot. But it wasn't the same as kind of taking a half volley into the back of the net. It wasn't kind of slicing through.
yeah,
So even that was relatively ineffectual in the grand scheme of things. It was, but like you say, rather lucky that the guy administering the kick didn't really know how to kick. Like
yeah,
not with any transfer of body weight that
yeah, yeah.
to really do for him. Yeah. And interesting, the kind of the cultural element, maybe these things aren't too different. Parts of the US, extremely violent, more violent than parts of the UK. But there's perhaps that kind of misunderstanding of, or just that naivety of what's going on because you're in somewhere that you just don't know the micro cues of the surroundings. You're not used to the kind of group attitudes and so on in the area, and you interpret it through the lens of what you would expect back home, and maybe that's different, right? And that's different regionally within the UK and so on. It's like the stuff that you can say to some people in some part of the country is totally different to the stuff you would get away with in other parts. What would be considered banter somewhere is considered a deep insult elsewhere, right? And
Absolutely, yeah. And proximity and
yeah,
touching,
yeah,
by the same manner. If you're totally accustomed to strangers, as soon as conversations opened up, a hand
yeah,
goes on your shoulder and
yeah,
you're close, and because you come from a culture
yeah,
where that isn't how the violence escalates, as
yeah,
you've seen it, then you allow that to happen, exactly like you say. Maybe culturally it's a bit more comfortable, even remonstrating with
yeah,
people being closer, because it doesn't escalate into
yeah,
fisticuffs. It's
yeah,
just
yeah. Maybe you have to go through another few stages before it even gets to that. Maybe I
the
remember
push,
some
top-down string.
American comedians saying, in New York, went to somewhere in the deep South in America and said something to a guy in a bar who just turned around and punched him. And he said, like, I'm from New York. We'd have 15 minutes of, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Who are you? Who the hell are you? Right? Before we even got to anything like that. Right? It's like, but no, one word and you got punched. And maybe there's some of that there. I think it's probably also a lot of denial as well because of the strangeness of the situation. There's no blueprint in the brain of what's going on here. Right? He's struggling to decode what's happening. Just to sort of track things through though. I mean, that the opening shot was of them walking.
Yeah.
Group of 5 guys walking, and when I watched that the first time, I thought, oh, it's match day. Right.
Look,
That's
football.
five. That's
Yeah.
5 football fans, not necessarily hooligans, but 5 football fans confident themselves in a group who are spread out. They're not huddled together like mates having a chat who haven't seen each other for a couple of
No, two
weeks
were
or
in the
anything.
road, weren't they? And
Yeah,
yeah,
they're kind of owning the area, right? They're kind of populating, they're spreading out to maximize their ownership of that area, right? They're taking control of that area. It's kind of, look at us, we're in control here. They're quite, they've got that kind of cockney walk going with the shoulders and the swing of the hips. So clearly not just out for a game of football or to meet up and go for a drink or a meal or something like that. They're out with that kind of confidence of a group that is perhaps on the edge of looking for a bit of bother.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And he probably stood out as a target, but they
yeah,
were looking for targets.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But if you saw, if you're in the high street, in Nottingham, and you see 5 lads, 6 o'clock on a Saturday evening, after the match has finished at wherever, and you see 5 or 6 lads coming like down the road like that, you're going to give them a berth, right? Give them a
yeah,
wide
yeah,
berth, because I don't really want to go through the middle of them, if they're feeling a bit upset about the result or whatever it is. I just thought the dynamic of that, the body language of it, spoke volumes as to, like, these are guys that are not just hurrying off to the bar for a drink after their game or after whatever. These are guys that are out, as a group, looking a little bit troublesome potentially.
Yeah, with
So
intent.
yeah,
Yeah.
see that kind of going on. Yeah, okay. I'll give them a wide berth just in case, but
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
99% of the time be fine, right? They're just, mates out for a laugh, but yeah, I still think I'd probably want my spidey senses to pick up on that and yeah, just go somewhere else or pay attention to something else.
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, there's a few tactics in that, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think it's uncommon. I think, like you say, it was probably this is our manor type. That's their streets, that's and yeah, I grew up in a part of Greater Manchester that wasn't the best, and there were areas in the town centre of Stockport where I was from, and there were sort of feral gangs who would make sure that you knew if you were roughly their age and
Mm.
walked through, you were lucky not to get a beating. And I got jumped. I got jumped a couple of times and had them wail on me. And just, for the sake of doing it, because I was on that stretch and that
Yeah.
was where that was their patch.
Yeah.
You know, it is
Yeah.
what it is. I think,
Yeah.
sort of idle youth and, sort of perhaps misdirected, nothing better to do with their time. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
back in the times.
we didn't see the kind of the transition from them walking down the street to then encircling him. That bit of the movie wasn't there, but you kind of the next thing you got was the fact that they've surrounded him, or they're on 3 out of 4 sides of him, right?
Yeah.
And at that point they're way too close, and he's obviously not clocking on to what's going on, or he's starting to work out this is not a safe situation, but he doesn't know how to extract himself from that, and so he's never done anything like that before, and realizes he's now in a bit of bother and it's not going his way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. And
yes,
I think, it looked like he had stopped as opposed to been stopped, and that's, if you're a good person and people are sort of talking to you, your flinch response is sort of to engage reasonably,
yeah,
which is,
yeah,
enough of a subterfuge perhaps to slow him down and get the other chaps to catch up. And suddenly they're asking you things and your brain's defaulting to
yeah,
what the answer is, as opposed to actually looking at the situation that you're within. And stuff we mention in
yeah,
training often.
yeah. Yeah, and why awareness is key. That awareness of your environment. That maybe this isn't the best place to be. It doesn't feel right. Awareness of those body language cues. A number of people around walking towards you. Picking up on those micro cues. The group communication before they get to you. The kind of surreptitious look and the nudge with the elbow. As they then start to turn their attention towards you. Yeah, all those things that we talk about all the time, which are very easily missed if you've never thought about them before, or if your head's up your ass looking at something else, your phone or whatever. In which case, yeah, and then you're surrounded, and it's hard work from there because they're all within touching distance, right? And then it kicks off, right? And they're all too close for him to do anything, even if he had the attitude, the will, and the skill to really do about it. But he did run, right? And so had the presence of mind to run, which is good, right? But as I hear this all the time. Oh, I just run away. I'd just run away, as though this is the kind of the panacea to all physical assault problems in stranger danger kind of situations. I just run away. And okay, there's a few things with that. One is, why do people not run away? Right? If this is such an obvious solution, why do people not run away? Right? There would never be, if there wouldn't be, surely there wouldn't be as many assaults as there are if people just had it on their toes all the time. Now, maybe some do, right? Maybe some do. They have the presence of mind to run away, and great, you should. Right? He would have been much better if he had just sprinted away from the start. Right? He didn't, and my guess is that a lot of people don't run away because they forget about it. Right? It's not something that they go, oh, I've got to run. Right? They get sucked into that moment. Like I said, someone asks you a question, you're a reasonable human being. Your default reaction is to start to answer it. Suddenly you're in a conversation. The thought of running away, if it was ever there, just retreats to the back of the mind, and you don't actually you don't actually even dredge it up. Right? Coppers ask you in an interview, well, why didn't you just leave? Well, there's no rational answer to that, in the sense that, yeah, well, I considered leaving, and then I decided, it's like, or I considered leaving and I thought, no, I'd stay and fight. That's not the thought process. So it just never occurred to me. Right,
Yeah, it
they
just
were
didn't
talking
happen.
to me. I was trying to work out what they was trying to say, and then suddenly one of them hit me. I never had the thought process to run away. I was so shocked and adrenalized at that point, that it just didn't occur. The second one is, the running was ineffectual, right? It
Yeah.
just you
He sort
ran.
of stopped. It looked like
Yeah,
he ran across the road as if that was enough, and
yeah,
then stopped against the hoardings for the
yeah,
scaffolding. And they all just jumped on him, but he was ahead of them. He was
yeah,
away. If he
yeah,
just belted it,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Which again, maybe, running with purpose rather than just running. If all that occurred to him was, well, I need to try and run, right? His body just started to run. Well, have you ever run with purpose like that? When, at least if you think about it beforehand, we again think about this, those first 30 yards are the most important, right? You've got to be faster than them. You've got to be sprinting at 30 yards to at
yeah,
least string them out, right?
yeah, yeah,
Even if they chase you. And if you get a real head start on them, maybe they're not even going to chase you because they realize that you're gone, right? You're like a jackrabbit and you're gone. But just to run 20 yards and then stop, maybe you'd had a few drinks, who knows, right? Maybe it's just, couldn't run, legs were in jelly. And that's the other thing, right? Have you ever run when adrenalized, right? So your legs are pumping, your arms are pumping, and you're going nowhere.
yeah, yeah.
If you really,
Like that nightmare, isn't it?
yeah, 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 but the idea, and I hear all the time amongst, kind of friends and family members, yeah, well, you just got to run away. That saves all the problems. Like, yeah, do you practice running? Oh yeah, I run 5K or 10K. Like, no, that's not the kind of self-defense running you should be thinking about. You should be
Yeah,
thinking about being on the treadmill, right? You know, why in your going out shoes, you know,
yeah.
yeah, like
Your
you're
hush puppies, your little
suited and booted
your
and
loafers.
whatnot. Yeah, you're cranking the treadmill up to as maximum as possible, right? So your legs are like way out behind you and your arms are flailing as you're trying to make it across as fast as you can over that first, quarter of a mile until you can look round and check, and then you need someone behind you shouting and screaming at you, and maybe holding a carving knife and naked, before before
Again,
that's adrenalized running for self-defense, right? And chances are within 3 seconds you're going to fall over anyway, right? Or you're gonna be so blown out of energy because your adrenaline is just sapping all your strength,
yeah,
after the first few seconds, that you're not actually gonna get away, right?
yeah. And on that running, you mentioned even running on the treadmill, or you go out and do your 5K. You don't run 5K through a city centre when it's shopping time.
Yeah.
Oh, most people don't. And I don't know if it'll lead us on to training, but I used to. I used to go down when I was sort of, been training with you for not long, year or 2 years or something, not a huge amount of time, and had settled in Nottingham. I used to go down from Forest Road where I was living, jog down to the centre of town on a regular, busy during the day, and I had 2 or 3 routes that crossed right through the city centre,
Yeah,
and I used to do them as fast as I could,
yeah,
moving around the people that were
yeah,
there. Absolute, like, full chat, getting in and out of people, crossing the road, trying to move out of the way of the traffic, and it was purposeful running. It wasn't me getting the fizz in. It wasn't
yeah.
what I was looking for. But who does that training?
Yeah. No, occasionally you see people running in the city, but usually they're having a jog around and stuff. They're on their lunch break from the office or whatever it is. They're having a bit of running. Yeah, I used to run through towns and lived in busy places where you just couldn't get to the country. I didn't have a car or anything like that, and so you run around the streets, and but it's slow progress, and it's very different to sprinting in a straight line, right?
Yeah,
And also, where's he going to run to? If you just ran down the dead end there, or just into another street, and you know, unless you know where you're running to,
yeah,
how long you're going to run for, and secondly, who says you can outrun these guys? Right?
yeah,
So the idea of run away. Okay, are you sure you can outrun them?
yeah,
Because I couldn't outrun people now, right? Old man, I can't outrun people. I'm not sure even when I was running for training on a regular basis, or running races, 5K, 10K, that I could out sprint most 18 or 20-year-olds over 20 meters, right? Some of them are just like jackrabbits, and you set off sprinting and they catch you.
Yeah, yeah,
As they did there. I want to lay a hand on him as he slowed up. Even if going full pelt, right? Some people are just really, really quick.
yeah, yeah,
We do that drill. We used to do that drill in the courtyard outside the gym where, you both lay down on the floor, and one would be lay down on the floor 5 meters behind you, and then on the whistle, the one in front's got to get up and sprint away, and the one behind's got to get up and touch them or grab them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
eight times out of 10, person behind would catch them.
yeah, yeah.
There's more of an incentive, it seems, to get to someone than it is to keep away, because you're kind of running with your ass up in front, sort of looking over your shoulder, right? You very rarely kind of head down and sprint. And some people, when they did that, they would catch everyone because they were just quicker.
Yeah.
So, right, okay, run away, yeah, great, but are you sure you can really outrun this guy? And then just going to end up knackered 35 yards down the road because you put everything into that sprint.
Yeah.
And then you've got to try and protect your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's difficult. If you're not, I mean, I think time and time again, this comes back into what we talk about, certainly here. You're never going to do what you think you'll do if you haven't tried it before. That constant, your uncle at Christmas who's saying, oh, well, I just see red and, smash them up. And you think, you probably weigh 150 kilos and, getting up off the sofa, you need a rest, but, you'll still smash them up, and it's the same principle with your friends, your peer group who don't train. And maybe, I've had a few mates who take the piss out sort of, doing Krav and stuff because it's not, maybe they've done boxing or they've done a more traditional martial art and they don't buy into it. And they sort of, one friend, his slight state, about 10 years I was carried with me, just chatting and sort of talking about doing stuff. And he's done a bit of martial arts. He's a bit crap, but he's done more than nothing. And he went, well, what about you? You think you're hard because you look at fire exits. And I just thought, yes, of course, that awareness and looking for things. And that does matter to me in that. And it did sort of, it cut me personally. But the point is, they were all convinced that they would be fine in any given scenario. Whereas none of them, other than me and perhaps one of them who grew up really rough in part of Oldham where he was fighting every day, most of them wouldn't do anything because they've never done that thing.
No, you kind of, I think the saying is, you fall to your lowest standard of performance rather than rise to your highest level of expectation, right? Absolutely. So the important thing is to bring up that lowest standard of performance to something that's good enough, right? And I think that's one of the other main points that's worth taking away from that video, which is, awareness is key, and it would keep people safe most of the time, right? If the lad had perhaps been a little bit more clued in, then maybe the outcome would have been a little bit different, because it would never have materialized. He would have been, exiting the scene before, or, at least putting himself somewhere where, he could exit if they start to show an interest. But also, I think, the other point is that, even if he had been, aware and switched on to what was coming, dealing with that situation on a physical level, if you haven't kind of done stuff, is almost impossible. And even with great physical training and preparation, imagine hard bitten semi-pro fighter or something like that, even they're having a hard time against a group like that, someone that knows what they're doing in a physical sense. But if you haven't got that, then if your awareness lets you down, then physically it's very difficult to deal with that kind of number of people without kind of training. And the training will only improve your odds so much, right? It's a hard ask to, if he'd fought back as hard as he could, would it have made much difference? Well, possibly not, right? There was just too many of them for him to probably deal with, as there would be for most, I imagine. But but you can increase your odds a little bit. I mean, in the physical sense of that, I think, again, this is a point that we made in previous podcasts, which is, the short course kind of basic combatives, great for many situations, but something like that requires, a lot of skill, a lot of experience, a lot of understanding, and the right headspace.
And being durable.
Yeah, yeah, just like not being too shocked when one of those straight arm punches whacks you in the side of the head, right? It's probably more shock than damage that you're getting from that. Is that kind of boom and yeah, wake up moment of what the hell just happened there. And if you're not used to getting hit with soft shots like that, and essentially they are, right? No one's doing massive amounts of damage unless they hit you right on the button with that kind of haymaker windmilling in sort of stuff. Then you're likely to be overwhelmed with shock rather than anything else. But yeah, I think it demonstrates that for dealing with something like that is an advanced problem rather than a basic problem, for which all that time training is probably the addition that Combatives adds to, or Krav Maga adds to, basic, good fight skills. Dealing with one person is hard enough. Dealing with two is pretty darn difficult. Dealing with five is, that's not a multiple assailant thing. That's just, that's a mob attack, right? It's just a bundle on.
You need serious tactics, and to apply them, you need to be in that higher brain function space, which you're not if it kicks off with 5 blokes around.
And getting around that in your headspace takes time and practice, and like you say, like the experience of being beaten up in training, so that you getting that durability, and you're used to the you're inoculated to the pain and the frustration and the fear and things like that. I mean, in physical terms, the first bit of being surrounded, all right, that's one thing that we train against all the time, trying to be mobile. It's not so easy when your legs are like jelly, and you're feeling weak because the adrenaline is hitting you, right? And everyone feels those things, right? The first bit will be awful. I was talking to someone who's a young guy who's a competitive judo player the other day, and he recently been at a competition, and I said, how'd you get on? He said, well, once I was warmed into it after the first fight, it was fine, right? But the first match I had, I just felt I was weak as a kitten. I lost the first match because I just couldn't kind of break out of it. I said, yeah, it's just adrenaline, right? You haven't competed for a while. You go out there, your grip feels weak. He feels like he's a blacksmith. He's like as strong as an ox. And it's just too overwhelming. But you had a second and a third match where you could kind of get your head around that. In this case, you've only got one chance. Right? You don't get another match. Right? It's the first bit that matters. So keeping them spread out from you is tough in the first place, and then you've got to have the commitment to go first. Realize what's going on. Right? I think in that situation, when you realize that this is going to be physical, right, then I think he pushed him away, or he kind of put his hand on him, tried to move him, and then they just started punching him, right? And so his first motion was ineffective, right? If you're trying to be physical, don't push him away, right? Just hit him, and hit him bloody hard, and make that the effective entry. And even if you get smashed up after that, then at least you did something to begin with to make them pay a little bit. But you got to have the capability to hit like a monster. You got to hit like an anvil in that case. You got to have drilled hitting hard so many thousands of times under that kind of adrenaline with a moving target when you feel weak and wobbly and highly adrenalized, so that you can put a 1-2 on two of them, and it counts.
That is time invested. That's isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's good. I think we do generally in training get as close to this as we can with you learn the techniques, you do the drills, you do some beat 'em up, you fatigue, and then you get more tired, and then you summarize the drill, and then you move on to the next one, and then at the end, when you're really tired, you've been there an hour and 25 minutes, it's like now we're into bastardos and burpees, and we're going to do shoulder carry sprints.
Yeah.
And when I blow the whistle, everyone's going to punch the hell out of you.
Yeah.
You know, that's when you know if your hands are going to stay up and throw a straight shot or not.
Or we're going to throw you into the corner and 3 others are going to pummel you, and you gotta ride it out and get a couple of cheap shots in the nuts or something like that. But I think that, you know, that's a world away from you know, it's a big ask for most, unless you have some, you know, real ability to hit hard. You know, if someone would, you know, in that situation, be able to, you know, strike the first 2 with some power, you know, it may not solve the situation. The others might just jump straight in, but it's gonna reduce the odds pretty quick, right? You know, if you hit 2 hard and at least one of them goes down straight off the bat, right? You know, again, probability is relatively small, but if you're doing it in training, if you're hitting hard in training, you have knockout power in sparring, then, you know, you're increasing your chances, and you take 2 out of the game for a little while, then the 3 that are left there, well, yeah, one of them may hopefully, you know, you can't rely on it, but one of them may hopefully think, oh, fuck that. Like, yeah, I'll hang back a little bit. It might give them pause for thought. They may not be so keen to jump in, but then you're on, you know, 2-on-1, which is, you know, sounds far better than 5-on-1. And then, you know, using, you know, your legs to get away a little bit and string them out, right? You know, there was an opportunity there when he did run that you saw them, you know, 2 of them went after him, but there was a little bit of gap. The third one came sprinting after him and overtook the first 2. You know, and there was an opportunity there, albeit a very fleeting one, to hit a third one very quickly, and then you've reduced the numbers even more, and to keep that mobile so they're stacked up. But, you know, that's, you know, again, it's a difficult skill to apply when it comes to it, even if you've practiced it many times.
Yeah.
He had his back against the wall as well, which is, you know, kind of another thing. You know, if you can't do that mobile game and the kind of zombie thing and keep them lined up, then, you know, put your back to the wall so that they can't get behind you. At the very least, you know, they might try and drag you off the wall, which is what they did. And he had his hands up in a kind of covering position, which was, you know, instinctive, but, you know, obviously, you know, didn't have the skills for dealing with that from there, or the experience of having 3 blokes stand there and pummel you with your hands up round your head in some kind of O'Neill or cover guard, and realize, oh, actually, okay, they're not hurting me too much from here. I can still kind of function a little bit from here.
Yeah. So I know we usually go on to you know, sort of minor training tips, stuff related to it, and I think, you know, other than talking about sprinting and maybe, you know, run through crowded places, do weigh it up. It always looks like you've stolen something, and you always run the risk of running into some old deer. So don't necessarily go sprinting through Nottingham in the Christmas shopping. You know, I think, you know, I maybe wouldn't do it now. Now I look back at having done it, but do some sprints, and maybe, you know, stick a sled on and, you know, weight yourself a bit, or, you know, push and pull something that makes you want to run, but you can't. But from your side, for striking power, if you're going to hit hard, other than actually repetition on a pad, is there anything else that you've looked at and seen before that's added any value in that turn, in that strike? So before I say that, you just reminded me of a kind of story about that kind of mistaken identity thing. You know, be careful where you're running and stuff, because other people don't know what's going on, right? You know, when I first, I'd probably have been in Nottingham a few years, and I was coming back from somewhere on a Sunday evening. I was walking, and it was kind of a busy intersection, and there was what turned out to be 3 joyriders in a car behind another car, and obviously weren't particularly good drivers, because they were stopped at the lights, and there was all this revving and squealing of tires, and it just kind of pulled straight into the back of this other car, and then it sort of reversed back and did it again. And I'm sort of looking, thinking, what the hell is going on here? What's this dude on? I didn't realize it was joyriders. And then it kind of scraped it all the way up the side of the car in front, and sort of pulled round the front. And so I like walked up, I thought, someone having a heart attack? What's going on? Right? Yeah, this is not normal driving behavior. It didn't occur to me it would be joyriders. And
I looked in the car, and there was a young woman driving the car that had just been scraped up, and then suddenly three lads got out of this other car and started to sprint up the road past me, and I thought, oh, what do I do? So I kind of thought, well, I'll see where they go, and maybe I'll call the old Bill or something, see where they go. So I kind of sprinted around the corner where the McDonald's was, and there were people in the car park. It was kind of I think it was summer, kind of autumn, and as I'm sprinting around the around the corner of the car park, some bloke reaches out and grabs me. It's like as if, and I go, "What are you doing?" He go, "Got you. Yeah, stay there, mate. Stay there." Like sort of, again, sort of get pulled off balance and stuff, and my legs sort of go swinging around behind me as he's got hold of my jumper, and like the three lads are gone by then. It's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like seeing where they're going, and he thought I was one that they'd heard this kind of smashing and lads getting out and people running up the street, and he thought I was one of them, which was, in one sense, I suppose, quite nice, because I was probably about 35 by that point, and they were all about 16. So
clean shaven that day.
Really. Yeah. Maybe I was like the Fonz or something, just like the cool old guy hanging out with the kids. But yeah, so sprinting and stuff like that. Chances are in that case, it's not beyond the realms of belief that someone would have actually grabbed hold of that kid and made him stay there. Right? You just don't know what's going on. It's very difficult to interpret it. Yeah, I mean, I suppose in terms of kind of preparation for those kinds of situations, the points I would make is that, we can talk about, stacking them up, not getting caught between them, and so on. But about hitting first, striking first, about the headspace in which you have to be in order to do that. But and those things are learnable. You can do that fairly early with people, but the survivability of that situation is not just tactical, it has to be technical as well, right? And it has to be drilled into you so your head is in the right place, that when this is a multiple assailant situation, you've got to strike first. You can't wait to be hit 4 or 5 times, and that takes a lot of training to get people to. Most people are not that kind of person, that they're aggressive and combative enough to go first. And my view, as we said last time, is that only comes through extended training. You can't install that into someone very quickly. You can't do that in 6 months with someone who's never had an argument with anyone in their life. That comes through a recognition and a certain skill set. And then I think the skill set of being able to hit hard and repeatedly and to take shots, I think is again something that takes an extended period of time to deal with that kind of situation. And so drilling pads, bags, heavy bags, being able to generate power. Right, that's the first level. Right, you're going to have the technical ability to hit hard with a basic set of shots, which under adrenaline conditions is not going to be a feat. Chances are you're not going to do some round kick or a knee to the balls or anything like that. Basic shots, open-handed or closed-handed, whatever you want to train. Linear. I find that circular shots for most people deteriorate under pressure. Being able to hit your body weight or heavier, being able to punch your weight or heavier, which would mean a unconsciousness from one shot, potentially on someone of your own size or slightly heavier, and being able to do that reliably, not just every third punch, being able to hit hard with every shot, left and right handed, closer distance and slightly longer range depending on it, and then that has to be honed through sparring, where you're trying to hit a moving target. You can make a pad move and all that kind of stuff, and we do all that so that it's not a clear shot. We can obstruct the pad and so on, but you're still hitting a pad, right? I think sparring is essential, and then putting that into situations where it's 2-on-1, 3-on-1, thinking about other tactics, thinking about covering your head, breaking out from the group, thinking about striking across yourself so that you can take 2 heads out rather than, pads are usually like this, but heads are usually like this or like this. How do I set that up to generate power at slightly different angles. What happens if I hit here and he's on me here? So you can play those kinds of games to generate power, you know, backward shots and so on. But then putting it into those kinds of multiple assailant kind of sub scenarios with different bodies in different places. Yeah, beyond that, I don't think it's, you know, rocket science in terms of preparation. You just got to prepare for context. And then inside of that, you know, presence of weapons. Right, if one of them had a knife, he was done for. Right, one had decided, you know, I think poor Daniel Pollan, who was murdered, you know, by a dude with a knife, while the other one punched him, and the second one came in with a knife. Right, you know, that situation, you know, someone had got a blade on them, then, you know, it was over. He wasn't running away at the end. And so yeah, I don't think that, you know, the skill set in a physical sense doesn't change too much, right? You've got to be able to hit hard, you've got to be able to hit first, and you've got to be able to hit continuously, even under a barrage of pressure. And you can replicate that in many ways, you know, with pads and multiple assailant pad work. But ultimately, I think, you know, you want to be sparring in that situation. You want to put yourself through 45 seconds of all out stuff.
Yeah, bit of milling.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of our
same
videos,
principle
yeah.
behind it.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the, you know, we've used buses and trains on various occasions because, you know, they're great environments where you can't escape from quite easily. You know, so running away is not possible when the bus is moving at 35 mile an hour and there's 4 guys there. And I think on one of the training videos that we filmed from the last bus event a couple of years ago, after we'd done the kind of the seminar, 4 or 5 of us kind of clobbered up and went in, and 2 of you would sit there not knowing who the particular victim is going to be in that case, and then 4 or 5 others would come on the bus and maybe start on one and then materialize to the other, or just go for it with one, or maybe come on, cause a problem, walk off, and you just weren't sure. And yeah, you know, even after many years of experience, you quite adrenalize the fact that there's 4 armored assailants with boxing gloves ready to tear you up. And you know, what comes out looks like a you know, chaos, absolute chaos. But within that, you can see, I think Mark, when Mark was in the kind of the subject position, yeah, Mark was just awesome, right? You know, he just didn't stop punching, and everything connected. I mean, he's an awesome little striker, and you know, everything connected with what he wanted to connect with. You know, it's right, big right crosses, left hook, headbutts, hammers, you know, and it was like a machine gun, just going and going and going. But that's someone with 20 odd years of experience in Krav, Thai boxing, that can really strike. And you know, and had put himself from memory, you know, back against the window, got up a little bit higher onto the seat, and was kind of raining stuff down and up, you know, into faces in a kind of relentless fashion. You know, but the skill and the aggression to be able to do that. But you know, didn't come off unscathed. You know, still got smacked up quite heavily, even with, you know, head guards and stuff on, right, until he could kind of vault over and get away. When whether that would have been possible without head guards on and just bare knuckles, who knows? But by the same token, he was up against people who were, and as we all were in that situation. I think we ran it about 10 times. We were all up against people who knew how to punch back, right? They weren't just windmilling in. They were really trying to go for you as well, right? And that's I think the difference that you pointed out at the start, that most of them couldn't hit for toffee.
Yeah, and some fortune in that. So
yeah,
no, good video, good point.
Yeah,
I'm quite sure there's more than one of those kicking around. I don't think it's an uncommon feature. So
yeah. No, and you know, again, I think that's the, you know, when we try and think about different spheres that we might prepare people for in training, you know, I know there's a lot of people who go, well, you know, not everything is, you know, kind of fights in the street, you know, whatever the street is, right? You know, it's a bit of a made up environment. You know, it's like, you know, as though there's this arena that we walk in and there's all these problems that are unique to it, when actually, you know, most violence is probably domestic or other kind of stuff. But, you know, and most attackers are known to you, and they start off as kind of interpersonal beefs and so on. But yeah, I think that kind of gang culture, group dynamic is, you know, one of the things that worries a lot of people, you know, just out and about and something happens, which then means that there's two or three of them who are emboldened by the presence of each other. Right? They're playing off each other, and they're waiting, and that's the situation I think a lot of people kind of fear, especially around here where they never go around in less than threes.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Good. No,
Yeah.
good topic. Good topic.
Yeah. And yeah, maybe we'll think about some kind of multiples or gang stuff a little bit again at some point. Think again about some of the tactics, which are easier said than done. Getting your mind around that. You can hear it said, I agree with it. If you go, oh, crikey, there's three of them, five of them, I'm fucked. Then you are right. You're in that negative headspace. Whereas if you can go, look, five big lads, multiple assailants, multiple targets to hit, right? Yeah, well, that's a great positive mind frame which will carry you through. Welcome it in if it's come to it, and have that positive. But getting there is, that's a journey. That's a long journey to get to that positive headspace. And I'm not sure that even with years of training, many people would, 5-on-1, have the capacity to think, oh, multiple target opportunity.
Target rich environment.
Yeah, target rich environment. It's like, I think most people are going to be, they're going to revert to their true characters than something they've tried to impose. I think the only thing that comes from that is, with training, your skill level goes up, your ability to hit hard goes up, and your level of surprise of what's coming back is reduced. And if you can use that and the exposure to adrenaline that you're perhaps used to through training, then you stand more of a chance. I've got a friend who was a top team fighter in the US MMA guy who moved to the UK, and he tells the story about when he got jumped essentially by about eight kids in the town centre after he said something to them because of what they had said to him. He said, I shouldn't have done. And they said, and suddenly they just kind of piled on me and dragged me to the ground. He said, I couldn't move, but they couldn't do anything. It was like a play school bundle on. So, but eventually, he said, I think it was his wife, sort of realized what was going on, started to pull them off. At some point, he managed to pop up. And he said, I managed to hit two or three of them pretty quick. And after that, they didn't really want to know. They were still giving it large. They were throwing things at him. Right, one of them threw a bike at him. It's like a BMX came looping over the top. And he said it kind of glanced off my arm and like took my arm out. He said it's like it really hurt. And then one of them had the saddle and was trying to hit him with the saddle off the bike. But they were keeping a distance. They were kind of dodging in and dodging out by that point because he'd hit two of them really hard, and they were on the floor bleeding and whining, and were not looking like they were wanting to come back in. But the other 4 or 5 were sort of still trying to do something until someone else came and sort of intervened. But that's a guy with a lot of skill, serious kind of MMA grappling, striking skill. And he said, if I hadn't have hit the first 2 hard and I hadn't had a bit of help from outsiders, then it would have been a tough ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of, there's a quote in True Grit, cowboy film. Originally, I think
John Wayne,
but it was remade with Jeff Bridges.
It was, yeah.
Ultimately, there's both are fantastic. There's a Coen Brothers remake. True Grit is really good, and there's a quote about if you go hard at a group or another man, you'll.
Oh, dude, your video's just seized up for me. Are you
right.
there? Oh, your audio went there, so I lost the quote from Rooster Cogburn or whoever it was.
It was Rooster Cogburn. I'm just trying to find it because it's said so much better than I could. But it's the principle of sort of he needs to go at a gang of people, and he'd done it once before in his life, and he quotes that if you go hard enough and fast enough and first, you sort of you get that advantage and take the wind out of some of their sails. But he obviously says it in a gritty southern drawl, and it sounds great. You need to look at it.
Well, in a meme text, a meme version, I'm sure someone's probably made a combative meme of it, which people can then kind of put on a patch on their backpack or something. It's like, you know, or along with that quote about how you should never pick on an old man because he's angry or something. Like these. I mean, I like the quotes, but yeah, this kind of
Tactical patch on your
yeah,
tactical
yeah.
rucksack.
Again, like who are you trying to kid, right? Like oh, well done, good meme use, right? That solved a lot of problems. Never mess with an old man. You don't know how angry he is. Seriously, right? Is that what you tell yourself? Some sort of internet fanboy who Yeah, okay, yeah, good meme use there. That just won the argument. That proved the point. Like, oh, but we can all sign up to, hit first, hit hard, no mercy, sir, or something like that. Yeah, oh, come off it. Who are you trying to kid, by little homilies and things rather than just getting on with the job. Yeah, everyone's brave on the internet behind a meme that gives you the personality they wish they had rather than one they've actually got. When I was looking for these videos, it pulls up all these other suggestions and weird stuff, and it's like, oh, really? I'm not even clicking on that. It's just like, but there was one about some dude who was fair with some sort of snooker cue or pool cue playing a game, and someone was taking the ball. And like all the comments were like, I'd wrap that pool cue around his head. If he did that to me, he'd be waking up next week with that pool cue around his head, or he'd have no teeth left. And I thought, seriously, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't, right? And if you did, you'd be in prison, right? You can't just
Yeah,
who does anyone really believe you that some dude on the internet who would actually, just because someone had picked up the cue ball, you would actually wrap your cue around another person's head, probably causing life-changing injuries over that. 99.9% of people won't, despite what they say on the internet. And the one or two that you can see on YouTube, you just think, oh yeah, you're doing probably 12, 15 years in prison for a Section 18 because you just took a lump of wood to someone who was just irritating you. That's not reasonable behavior. It's not self-defense, right? But you're lauding it as though this is some kind of manly, sort of attitude that which you would do, which we all know you wouldn't. And I think that's the same kind of meme brigade that have these things that oh yeah, I'm so hard because I've got a patch with a meme on it. But yeah,
I'll just go and
okay.
remove those patches now.
Yeah, go and take off your tactical patches off the bag, off the tactical bag, the leg holster bag or
Tactical
something.
bag.
Yeah,
Yeah,
camo gear, walking around like you just come out of some, Blackwater private military company op or something with your tactical cap on backwards, and and your tactical pen in your pocket, and yeah. Oh, the fun of it, the fun of the wannabes and the ones yeah, it is. And I suppose just as a last point, now we're kind of riffing on that a little bit. The number of people that when they aspire to be like something, right, they buy the kit for it. It's like the
yeah,
kids, the kids that want to be footballers. It starts at a young age. Kids want to be footballers, so they buy the Mo Salah top, but they don't practice like Mo Salah does. They want to be Mo Salah, but they don't practice like Mo Salah does, right? Or you want to be like, I don't know who the best MMA fighter is at the moment. So you buy the rash guard that he wears, but you don't train like he does. 7 days a week, twice a day in the gym. Watching videos every other moment that there is, living on chicken and broccoli. Yeah, it's like I just buy the rash guard.
yeah.
That'll help.
All the gear, no idea.
Yeah, that'll help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, the martial arts seems to attract its own share of those. Yeah, and
There's a lot everywhere. There's
yeah,
yeah,
and that's kind
we
of why
agree.
I think our classes, people training whatever they want to train in. There's no kind of, you must dress like this as though this is somehow going to make you better or enforce a kind of discipline that you will then have that carries through to something else. Like, yeah, no, let's forget all that stuff. Let's concentrate on the basic skills. And, yeah, that's what will make you better, not the gear.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
Cool.
we've gone over the hour again, so we should probably call it quits and get on with our days. And
Happy days. Okay,
yeah.
I'll look for something else for the next
Yeah.
one, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
we'll keep
Christmas
going.
is coming, so maybe we can squeeze a couple in over the break.
Yeah, as long as folks want to listen, we'll try and keep them running.
Yeah,
Look
well,
forward
keep our friend from Broadmoor happy with another
He's #1 subscriber.
shout out to him.
Yeah, good. All right. Enjoy the rest
All
of
right,
your
mate.
day.
Yeah, see you soon.
See you
Cheers.
later. Bye bye bye.